The following is a project of our nonprofit newsroom. Support Midcoast Morning and local community-centered journalism today by signing up to be a monthly sustaining donor at chly.ca/donate. It doesn't take much money to support local news.
Hello and welcome to Midcoast Morning. I'm Joe Pugh. The sights and sounds of Cable Bay Trail in Nanaimo's south end could be very different in a few years' time. The 2-kilometre trail down to the ocean is nestled amongst private land. Land its owners have plans to develop. Nanaimo Forest Products purchased land directly west of the trail in 2022. The company is looking to develop the area as an industrial park. Nanaimo's official community plan foresees an industrial use for land on the trail's west side, although the rezoning process from rural resource has yet to take place. There are plans for a buffer averaging 100 meters on the west side of the trail. East of the trail, landowner Cable Bay Estates Limited, a Calgary company, has submitted an application to the city to subdivide the land into 34 small acreage lots. Those lands are within the city of Nanaimo, but they fall outside of the urban containment boundary. That means that they won't have community services like water and sewer extended to them. For 3 years, a group called Save Cable Bay has been campaigning in an effort to turn the area around the trail into a park. I met up with 3 members of the group for a walk around Cable Bay Trail.
Hi, I'm Jane Alcock-White. I'm on the board of directors of the Yellow Point Ecological Society and an advocate for the Save Cable Bay group.
Hi, I'm Jackie Waslick, and I'm an advocate for saving Cable Bay. I live in the Cedar community.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Bancroft, and I am also an advocate for the Save Cable Bay group and live in the Yellow Point area and walk this trail frequently.
And we're on the trail right now. We're walking along Cable Bay. Can you tell me about this trail? What is it we're seeing, and what's got you looking to save the trail?
The trail itself is a little bit less than 2 kilometers long. The first 500 meters of the trail or so is within the RDN, and the remainder of the trail goes through the city of Nanaimo. The portion we are concerned about are the lands within the city of Nanaimo. There's a proposal for the west side of the trail to be developed by Nanaimo Forest Products Limited as industrial land, and that's about 200 acres plus. And the east side is proposed to be developed by a private landowner with several pages of shareholders into a subdivision, residential subdivision, and again, that's over 200 acres.
So as you stated there are maybe 2 pieces of this that people need to know about. On the west side of the trail, industrial development. On the east side of the trail, a subdivision application. What do you think it's important? What would you like people to know maybe about that first piece? What are the issues at play on the west side of the trail with this industrial development?
I guess the main issues are that originally our group, the Save Cable Bay group, and Nanaimo Area Land Trust had asked the city to ensure that there was a minimum 100-meter buffer to protect the trail from the development, the industrial development, and that would be noise and aesthetics and just protecting the trail from blowdown and that type of thing. But currently, the plan is to give us an average 100-meter buffer, which in reality looks mostly like 50 meters, except for where it can't be developed due to, steep topography and environmentally sensitive areas.
Can you give me a sense of what these numbers mean? 100 meters, 50 meters. Obviously, people know those distances, but in the context of the trail, what What is that? What is the difference between 50 meters and 100 meters? This is something that came up at a governance and priorities meeting in 2022 when, at the time, City Council was debating this. There was a lot of questioning from maybe both sides of the issue as to what's the difference between 50 and 100 meters?
Well, the difference for trail users is they get to actually enjoy the quality of the trail without having big trucks and machines barreling down beside the trail. 50 meters is very close, especially when the proposal for the entire 200 acres is to grade and extensively develop. So what that basically means, pave the whole thing. So there will be a lot of loss of tree canopy and wildlife, the whole thing. So the 100 meter gives us shade, a whole bunch of things.
When we've got birds here, pileated woodpeckers, if you've got industrial activity 50 meters away, they're going to find another location.
Yeah, there really isn't another location around here. There are deer living here. There's all sorts of animals, and it's really important that we maintain 100-meter buffer.
Can you give me more of a sense of what the industrial use is? What is going to happen to those lands? What maybe the timeline and the certainty of all this is?
I don't think we know too much about the timeline. We only know that because the lands on the west side are going to be rezoned, there is a public hearing. How long that process is, I don't think we have much clarity. But in the engineering report that sort of accompanies the development proposal, there's 5 land uses proposed. And those were heavy industrial, sawmill, warehousing, and manufacturing. But we don't really know much beyond that. It looks like they would be leasing those lots out to other companies. Potentially, they'd be using some of the lots for logging activities. And that just opens up the trail to, the potential impacts of whatever ends up being in there. There's one section where the buffer is wider, where there's a bit of a Gary Oak meadow. But where it is 50 meters away from the trail, it's pretty flat. There has been logging activity in there before, so there's not much of a buffer at all. So it would be very visible to the trail.
And you talked there about Gary Oak Meadows. I'm curious about this area, what the lands that are going to be developed on both the west side and the east side, maybe what the difference is, if there is one, the specific conditions of the environment that is going to turn into both industrial land on the west side and a potential subdivision on the right side. What is particular about that land?
Well, it actually is contiguous, really. It is bisected by the trail, but for example, the one area where the buffer widens on the west side, because there's a Gary Oak meadow, that same meadow is on the opposite side of the trail as well. And that is one of the issues with the subdivision proposal, is they might have placed a buffer around one of the Gary Oak meadows to protect it from the roads that they are proposing to put in, but then that same meadow is divided into separate lots, and then it's not able to be protected anymore once it's subdivided and sold off. So basically, there's multiple different types of land categories, I guess you might call them. There's Gary Oak Meadows, there's old growth forest, there's second growth forest, and it's the same on either side of the trail, but the west side has been logged more extensively in the past, so it doesn't have as many intact features, I guess you would say, as the east side does. The east side has a lot more of the Gary Oak Meadows and the old growth forest.
Can we zoom out maybe a little bit and help people understand how have we come to this situation that there is a subdivision application on these lands in the first place? Like, what is the history of these lands from an ownership perspective all the way back?
The lands were purchased, I think it was maybe around 2006 or 2007. And at that time, they were purchased by investors from Alberta. There's 25 pages of investors listed on the title. And the main investor proposed a golf resort and spa over the entire area, both the west and east side. The community spoke out against it, and eventually that was declined or denied, and now we're back to doing the same thing because he's now proposing a subdivision on that side. And there are no roads, water, or services, and that's one of the main reasons the golf course was denied, because how can you have a golf course without water? And imagine all of the chemicals that would seep down towards the ocean. It was kind of ridiculous. So now today he's proposing a subdivision, which I believe he submitted sometime last year, and the city is going over his proposal, and we're wondering whether it will be approved or denied. We don't know when. It could be any time.
Midcoast Morning. We'll be right back.
Midcoast Morning is made possible by the Community Radio Fund of Canada's Radio Meters program and listeners like you. Support Midcoast Morning and CHLY's nonprofit newsroom today by becoming a sustaining donor at chly.ca/donate. Local news can't survive without your support. Another way to help us out is to share this show with your friends and tell them why they should support us. Finally, if you're listening to the podcast edition of Midcoast Morning, go and give us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast feed you use. It helps people find us.
We're exploring the Cable Bay Trail on today's program. Located near Nanaimo's southern boundary, privately owned lands around the 2-kilometre trail have the potential to be developed in the near future. On the west side, Nanaimo Forest Products Limited is preparing an industrial development. There are plans for a buffer zone averaging 100 meters between that side of the trail and the proposed development. On the east side of the trail, Calgary company Cable Bay Estates Limited has submitted a subdivision application to the city of Nanaimo, seeking to create 34 lots. For more than 3 years, a group called Save Cable Bay has been campaigning with the ultimate goal of creating a park in the area. I met up with 3 members of the group, Jane Alcock-White, Jackie Waslick, and Cheryl Bancroft, for a walk around Cable Bay. And this kind of meadow area we're walking into here, is there anything special or significant about this?
Well, all of the meadows are special and significant. There's all the typical meadow plants here: camas, sea blush, spring gold. In some of these meadows here, there's we know of one red-listed plant, and that's recognized by the federal government as endangered. And it's only found in 3 locations in Canada, one of which is here. And then recently, walking here with a group from Botany, BC, and some other plant specialists, we found a red-listed mushroom and a red-listed lichen. So we had been asking for in the letters that rather than having just registered professional biologists come out here and do like 1 to 2 day surveys of over 200 acres where they're trying to capture all the wildlife, all the birds, amphibians, plant species, they actually should be bringing in experts in all of those fields, because if in one day with actual experts in the field we found 2 more red-listed species, that should be a big red flag that they should do the same thing as part of their environmental assessment process.
What would you say to the response that in terms of prioritizing land to become city parks, this one isn't accessible to a lot of folks living in Nanaimo without using their cars? So, there would be great benefit to the people nearby who could come here easily, but everyone else would be increasing their carbon footprint, for example, by driving their cars out here, and therefore it might make more sense for an organization like the city to try and prioritize other lands as the green space they're trying to protect.
Well, I'm going to let Jackie speak to that, but you could also bicycle out here. It's relatively flat to get here.
Yeah, and this trail isn't just used by City of Nanaimo folks and Cedar folks. It's used by tourists from all over the world. I've videotaped many of them, and most recently Japan a couple days ago. And think of it like this: if you can come to a trail, it's just a few minute drive from Nanaimo, where you can see orcas from shore, and it's likely one of the best places on the island to see the shore. It's worth the drive. It's not much of a drive. I mean, they could drive to Victoria, they could drive elsewhere, so why not drive somewhere close to your community?
And there is a city bus that comes out to Cedar several times a day.
I'm curious as well, so the company that owns these lands on the east side, Cable Bay Estates, another issue that's kind of similar to this one in our area is Harewood Plains. And, I might speak with Lisa Marie Barron, our MP, about that. And there's always this kind of need to preface any kind of comment with, I recognize that we're in a housing crisis right now. What do you think stands out about maybe that lens when it comes to this issue?
This issue is for big houses. It is not a housing crisis issue. It won't solve that at all because, as you referred to it, Cable Bay Estates are for multi-million-dollar homes. So it won't help solve that. And the fact that there is no water makes that, a big, I don't know, it doesn't make sense. So there's no way to help with the housing in this area, I don't believe.
But I think in the area, for example, just at the south end of Nanaimo, we're going to be having the sandstone development, 756 acres of development of residential, commercial, and industrial properties. Those people are going to need somewhere to get away from the asphalt and come out into a park and de-stress and just enjoy nature. Well, this is 5 minutes away.
I'm curious as well about this idea of, to make this land public, this is a privately owned land, to make this land public, it would cost a lot of money. The history of this being private land in the first place, was this part of the E&N railway grant in the 19th century?
I am not certain. I know that when the city of Nanaimo acquired these lands, it was managed forest. And I remember when I was younger that where we parked in the RDN lands, which is now owned by the same person, and then it was logged in 2021. There was Weyerhaeuser signs up there for a long time. And then I believe Weyerhaeuser sold it to Timber West. And then I would guess that after Timber West, it was the Albertan fellow and all the shareholders that purchased the entire thing with the golf resort and spa. So prior to that, I'm not sure, although it seems like everything was part of the E&N land grant.
It was owned by Macmillan Bloedel when the...
Okay, Macmillan Bloedel.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's gone through all the forest companies' hands prior to this.
Is there a way out of this that would kind of be more final, and you wouldn't feel like there was some kind of campaign you had to go on next year, always around the corner?
I think to finalize it, we need to find a foundation, an organization, or a trust to come on board and hopefully purchase the east side, and we may have to fundraise to assist with that, but that's the ultimate goal.
Have you explored the idea of buying these lands yourself, or like with the assistance of some kind of partner?
Well, we're certainly looking for a partner, and for this type of project, we really need a major foundation or two. And we are communicating the intent to find funders with the city, and certainly with NALT. And so we're hoping that as this moves along within the very next short while, that we are going to pull together a funding option for this.
What's the scale we're talking about here? How much, both in terms of size of land that you're looking to buy and the potential cost?
Well, we're looking at in approximately 200 acres, and the costs will be somewhere between $9 and $10 million.
Do you have any idea of whether whoever owns this land might be open to selling them?
Previously, I spoke to the Cable Bay Estates realtor, and it sounded like they had a number in mind that was pretty much double the assessed value, and it's even more than they sold the west side lands for, and the west side lands, same amount of acres, 200. That sale was based on those lands becoming industrial, so they have a higher value. So, we're hopeful that the subdivision will get denied or the development permits will get denied, and that'll bring the investors down to reality.
Is there any kind of precedent to buying 200 acres of land on Vancouver Island and turning them into a park? How does that get done?
I believe that gets done through foundations and trusts.
Yeah, conservation organizations.
Yes.
That's what they're all about, and that's who we're appealing to.
So something like the BC Parks Foundation, for example, has a budget, is an organization that sort of does this work, and its main day-to-day activity, if you will, is just buying land to preserve it?
Yeah, that's their purpose, and there are other conservation foundations that is also their mandate to do. So that's our best hope, is to appeal to those foundations and make this happen, so that we can all enjoy this land as a public park forever.
Is there anything else you feel like we haven't talked about so far? Anything else you think it's important to bring to this conversation today or to share with people?
If everyone is interested in helping out, to please join Save Cable Bay on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, please go to the website, which is savecablebay.org. And right now we have an email campaign to email the mayor and council. Their email address is mayor.council@nanaimo.ca. We would like everyone to ask or request that the east side become a park, and if the city needs to reach out to provincial and federal governments for resources, that's what they should do.
And earlier you mentioned that sometimes when you send things to the mayor, you might get a response. What kind of things have you heard back?
We get a form letter back.
We don't get much of a response. I've received a thank you a few times and thanks for your advocacy, but other than that, there's not much.
I think other members outside of the Save Cable Bay group are the ones getting the form response, and basically it just says that these are the 3 applications we've received and we're reviewing, and because everybody mentions the importance of the 100-meter buffer, they will always mention in those form letters that the city plan policy approved an average 100-meter buffer, and that on the east side, where there are no watercourses or sensitive areas, there will be a 30-meter buffer, and that they are absolutely certain that these buffers will protect the trail and maintain the experience for everyone to enjoy, which seems kind of ridiculous to me.
Yeah, and finally, if you haven't been to Cable Bay, I do recommend walking the trail all the way to Joan Point Park, and maybe you'll get lucky and see the orcas like we have multiple times. It never gets less exciting.
What does this trail mean to you? What is its impact? Why are you investing so many efforts in trying to preserve this?
This trail is like my backyard, pretty much. I come here every day and walk my dogs. It's the best place, best off-leash dog park around. I mean, well, there I said it. See, I said off-leash dog park. It's the best off-leash area, and it should be a park. And I mean, you walk the trail during nesting season and the birds are singing all the time. I often see owls. There's herons at the bottom catching fish. There's eagles. It's just such an amazing spot to enjoy nature.
And I'm a bit more of a plant person, I guess, so there are very few places in all of Nanaimo, really. Maybe there's Lindley Valley, But there's very few places that actually are of significant size that are protected as parkland that include so many different ecosystem types. We have like the creek, watercourse, wetland areas. We have the meadows. We have the deep old growth forests. And when I've walked here with Botany BC, I think, because, I have my phone which tracks steps. It took us 4.5 hours to go about 5,000 steps. We looked at so many amazing plants that all were either blue listed, there were the red listed plants. There's so much diversity here that should be protected.
And I'm a member of the Ecoforestry Institute. I live in Yellow Point right next to Wildwood, which the Ecoforestry Institute is trustee of. And I see too many of these forests in this area being cut down for development, and it has to stop because we will never get this forest back.
Cheryl Bancroft, Jane Alcock-White, and Jackie Waslick are involved with the group Save Cable Bay. I was able to connect with a member of City's staff about this who confirmed that the subdivision application is under review, but couldn't provide a timeline on when the situation may resolve. I hope to bring you more information on this in the near future. For now, though, that's our show for the day. I'm Joe Pugh, host and producer of Midcoast Morning. Jesse Woodward is our executive producer, and Arby Frew is our technical advisor. You can sign up for CHLY's newsletter at chly.ca/subscribe for updates from our nonprofit newsroom and more. Our theme song is First One by local Nanaimo band Waste Management. If you have a story you'd like us to cover, email us at news@chly.ca. That's all for now. I'll talk to you on another Midcoast Morning.
Midcoast Morning would not be possible without the funding of the Community Radio Fund of Canada's Radio Meters program and listeners like you. Midcoast Morning is a project of CHLY's nonprofit newsroom. Support nonprofit journalism in Nanaimo and on the Salish Sea today by becoming a monthly sustaining donor at $5 or more per month. Support the program at chly.ca/donate. If you're already a supporter, record a voice memo telling others where you're listening from and why they too should support our work. After you're done, you can email it to us. Also, share the podcast with your friends. While Meta is blocking Canadian users from sharing news content on their Facebook feeds, you can still share our podcast directly with your friends via Facebook or Instagram Messenger. Finally, this program acknowledges and gives thanks to the Nanaimo First Nation as we broadcast and podcast from their traditional territory. Thanks for listening.